Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to episode number 43 of Deep in the Novo. I'm Ryan Novozinsky, joined here, as always, by my co-host and my roommate, Sudeep Tumma, the sports editor for the Okali. Today, we're going to get right into it. Let's talk about OSU's 78-66 loss against the Kansas Jayhawks. A lot of times in these matchups, Sudeep, obviously, you'll see OSU being the unranked opponent. And KU being the ranked opponent, as it happened just a couple weeks ago over there in Gallagher-Iba when OSU played Kansas. This time was a little bit different. OSU was ranked, KU was unranked, and KU still came with a pretty convincing victory over the OSU Cowboys.
They did, and they looked like the better team most of the game. And it was a tough one because as you go through it, the game plan really shifted for Kansas, for OSU. Everything shifted. It was a violent shift of just the approach on offense. And for me, this game started on offense, right, with Cade Cunningham, and his 7 turnovers. But it's not as plain as just saying, hey, he had 7 turnovers, he struggled. He also had 26 points, right? He had to take things into his hands a little bit as the game went along. And to me, the whole game, for most of the game, at least till the end, OSU was really holding at bay, right? They were close to it. They were within 5-10 points. It always felt like they were within striking distance. And anytime they would score a basket, Kansas would just answer back. And they were never too far off, and they were getting good looks on offense. Because when you look at the first half, the percentages were both pretty mediocre for both teams. And it's not that neither one was running bad offense. I think it was a mix of turnovers, really good defense, and also guys just not converting threes and open shots. And that led to a lot of it to begin with.
I was going to say, the defense in this game stuck out to me. In that first half, I mean, there was a reason why it was relatively low scoring, a low-scoring affair in the first half, at least, is because you get Kansas and their, tenacious defense. I mean, they were tough on defense yesterday for sure. The entire game, it seemed like. OSU, too, a little bit in the first half. Obviously, it dipped down quite a bit. But, man, this KU team, they're great at defending the wings, aren't they? And they do a good job all around on defense. And, man, how did they do this? What did KU do differently on defense in this game versus the last time where OSU obviously won?
Kansas traditionally, under Bill Self, has been always an elite defensive team, right? This year, they're not as good. They're still, still top 100 in defense efficiency, not as powerful. But this game, they came out with a good plan. And teams have realized throughout the season, from the beginning to now, they're shading Cade Cunningham still because he's Cade Cunningham, but they're not blitzing him 2, 3, 4, 5 guys the way that guys were in the beginning when they didn't realize this OSU team had other playmakers, right? Like Bryce Williams, Rondell Walker, Isaac Likely, right? And on, Avery Anderson. Guys who can create with their own – you just hand them the ball in one-on-one situations, see what they can do. And guys for OSU can do it. But still, teams are going to shade Cunningham and, stick to him. And teams did that early on. Every time Cade Cunningham was Kansas did that. Every time Cade Cunningham was in a ball screen, they would blitz it and cover up the rotation guy. Sometimes they messed up that slip when it was by Caleb Boone, and you had a wide open slip, which Cade Cunningham found, or he'd pass out and someone else would get the basket and OSU would score. But what happened so often was when Cade didn't, find an assist, score a basket, or pass out to an open guy who would pass to another guy, OSU would miss those looks, right? If Cade Cunningham passed to an open three-point shoot, for example, they were missing those looks. If Cade Cunningham passed to Ice, who passed to Avery Anderson, missing a look, right? Bryce Williams, missing a look. And every time Cade would make a good decision, or someone would just pass to another person, when the offense would run well, and they would get really good looks, whether from three, whether, on cuts or other good baskets, they weren't converting the looks. The field goal percentage was in the 30s for her. 35% this entire game. And then other times, it was just really, active fans by Kansas. They were stripping right at the ball. They were creating turnovers. And all of them, the issue was a lot of live ball turnovers. So whenever they would force those turnovers, Kansas was out there, out running. It wasn't dead ball turnovers where you can get back on OSU and, set up your defense. It was a lot of active turnovers where you're getting out in transition immediately and you're, changing complexion. And then as the game went on, the entire first half, even the beginning of second half, Kansas was, sending 2 guys. They were shading Cade a little bit, but they were still playing a little more even keel. But as the game went on, Cade continued to realize every time he's passing open guys for really good looks, no one's converting. Their 3-point percentage, right? They shot 7 for 26. I think Cade made 4 of those himself.
4 for 8.
Right. You take the rest of that, and that's about maybe 3 for 20 from everyone else. It's just, again, first of all, OSU doesn't want to shoot 23s, but when they do and very good looks, you need to start hitting them. When Bryce Williams is shooting and Rondell Walker, those are probably your 2 best 3-point shooters, besides maybe Cade, right?
Yeah.
And as the game went on, Cade would pass to those guys and they were missing, and it kind of gets in your head when you're thinking, okay, how many times can I pass and they miss? I need to take over. And so he did, right? He got those points, but he also got a lot of turnovers, 7 turnovers, and numerous bad shots because he has to. Yeah, you can blame it on him, but had he not done that, they were just missing anyway. And that's where you kind of pick your poison. That's where you kind of realize, you got to realize, hey, what do I do in this situation? And I mean, to me, Cade Cunningham made the right decision, right? He put up as many points as he could because as he was scoring those points, the scoring, if it had matched the defense in which OSU had played in the beginning of the game, they would have probably been a very close game. But because Cade started, taking it into his own hands, and he was scoring a lot of points, but OSU wasn't playing defense on the other side. But that was the issue. That's where you see 7 turnovers because guys weren't making their shots, and a lot of it fell on him because he had to do it. Not just falling on him in terms of, hey, here's the scoring load, falling on him in terms of he had to handle the ball more. And yeah, he's going to take blame for that, but you got to realize the situation at hand.
Here's my analogy, okay? And I'm so glad you brought this up, is that first of all, I mean, we'll just get the cliche aside. We'll just get it out of there. This is becoming a cliche in our show, but Cade is a shooter. Okay, Cade is a shooter. He's the best shooter on this team, I think. Cade is great at getting open, okay? He's great at creating his own shot. He's great at finishing some of the opportunities that his teammates are setting up for him. The only problem is that his team has the exact opposite problem, okay? They don't finish the opportunities that Cade sets up for them, right? So it'll be Cade Cunningham, right? And it might not even just be an outright Cade Cunningham assist. It might be, like you said, a pass to an assist, a pass to an assist, right? And then they don't follow through with them, right? They miss these seemingly easy opportunities, and it's a fascinating thing to see. It's really alarming because I thought that at this point in the season they would correct some of these woes, but it's becoming more and more of a problem.
I think for the most part they've been good with it, right? I mean, that's why you take down a team like Texas, where other guys besides Cade are contributing and able to, like Avery Anderson, for example. He's having an excellent season, much improved 3-point stroke. We've seen what Ice can do all season long. There's a reason this team stuck with Baylor without Cade, right? I think for most part they figured out their roles. They're not going to be a volume 3-point shooting team, but guys like Bryce Williams might take 7 threes. Rondell Walker can take 5, 7, 6, 7 threes, right? And because those guys are better 3-point shooters. And these guys have found their role. They found their niche in this entire team. This is just one of those games where I think it's an outlier, but the score looks so bad for other reasons, right? It's like if you watch first half or second half, by the end of it, they were blitzing 3-4 guys onto Cade with reckless abandon because they knew, because Cade saw that coming, and he has to force a shot up anyway because if he doesn't, then he's going to pass to someone who he thinks will miss. And if he does, they're going to miss, right? I mean, that's the equation you're handed. So that's the tough thing for a guy like Cade Cunningham. I mean, for anyone in that position. But that's kind of what you were handed, and that's why the score looks so lopsided. But, I mean, think about it, right? Most of the game, it wasn't.
Yeah, you're right, and that was probably more of a recency bias of my thinking, I guess. But, when you also, look at some of the things with Cade, right? Cade Cunningham's performance, the thing that sticks out and the thing that a lot of people were talking about today and yesterday is that Cade Cunningham in the first half versus the second half. What I like about Cade is that he feels things out in the first half and then he explodes in the second half. That's what I love about it. But I don't know about you, but this morning at like 4 a.m, okay, I was rewatching this game because originally when I was watching it, I was listening to the great broadcasting crew of the play-by-play being Jared Alatorre of the Ocali and Sudeep Tumma being the color commentator. But when I was listening to it again last night, Fran Fraschilla was talking about how he thinks Cade needs to step up more and take over the games earlier on. What's your assessment of that?
Yeah, see, that's the thing. So many people think that and say that, but to me, it's that Cade, if you really study him, and obviously if you're a basketball purist, you see that Cade Cunningham is so special because not only is God-given talents as as a finisher, as a passer, as a shooter, and a defender, versatile player, right, and a smart, high IQ player, but really like high IQ and poise and understanding and maturity beyond his age, right?
Yeah.
That this guy understands pace so well. Like I used to say this all the time in the beginning, why he's so special, because whenever whenever you see him drive, right? When you see him drive, just watch any drive that he drives and one where he passes off before driving. Not just passes off for an assist, but just passes off before he even takes 2 steps into the lane. When you see him driving in, he's basically going one-on-one. When there is help, there usually is help, 2 or 3 guys. They're coming in late, where Cade knows he can take, a floater. He can take a little layup from, 3, 4, 5 feet away without having that rim protector there, without having someone log him off, or without having a double coming where he can't pass it off. When he does get rid of the ball, like before he takes 2 steps in, he's getting rid of the ball because he knows that this is how you quantify it. Watch him when he passes the ball up. He's going to have 3-4 defenders coming at him, like 3-4 defenders all around him, staring at him, ready to collapse. And he understands that if he goes in that situation, not only will he not be able to get a shot off because there's guys cutting him off like you saw against Kansas, which he had to force, but he doesn't drive those baskets because he knows there's going to be 3-4 guys where not only is he not able to get a shot, he's also not able to find a passing lane. Like I always say, not all help defense is created equal. And the way teams can do it a lot of times in the first half, because they're so worried about Cade Cunningham, they'll cut off his passing lanes, they'll cut off his shooting lanes, they'll cut off everything, right? So he passes it off early, and he trusts his teammates and Isaac Likely to drive in and create for someone else, or Isaac Likely to pass to someone else, who passes someone else, and they get a basket, right? And the reason teams will put those 3-4 guys, and again, I say all this to come to this, the reason those teams will put all those 3-4 guys is because they don't believe that Avery Anderson, Bryce Williams, everyone else on this team, Caleb Boone, are going to beat them. So what you see in the first half is teams almost testing this OSU team. Hey, can the other guys beat him? So let's force the ball out of his hands. But then they realized, oh man, OSU is going up early. Guys are beating us, right? Yeah. Avery Anderson, Bryce Williams. It's always someone, Isaac Likely, Caleb Boone, who's always beating them in the first half. Then what happens in the second half? Teams will still double and shade Cade, but they'll do it in a way where Cade knows he can get to his spots. And to me, that's why in the first half he sees that defense and he passes it out, and he's so unselfish and so smart that he will pass it out while still taking his spots here and there in the first half. But he'll pass it out because a true floor general doesn't just take shots and make assists. They also understand pace.
Of course.
They also understand where to get the ball, when to move, when not to move, all these things. So he does in the first half. He realizes, I need to get rid of the ball more. And then when the team starts to defend him differently, then he goes. Because when you see him in the second half, a lot of times, when he's driving on a one-on-one situation where there's one defender in front of him. Or maybe there's a help guy who's coming in late because Cade sees that. That's how smart he is. He's seeing it before. To me, that's why in the second half he excels so much more.
And how poised and how patient is he? I mean,
right.
Come on, like you could talk about it all you want. It's the reason that even in some of the games where he will score, like I think one game he scored like 9 points or something like that. People will look at bad game from Cade. No, it's not.
Right.
You see some of the maturity in those 9-point performances where on a game like that, Isaac Likely or Avery Anderson, who by the way, like you said, is taking such a big leap this year. I think he had another fantastic game yesterday. Yeah. He is able to, like you said, be that floor general and control this team with poise, with patience, with intelligence, and that's the reason, obviously, that Cade Cunningham is not overrated.
and that's why it goes both ways. To your point, in a game like this where he scored 26 points. Yeah. I think it's one of his worst games this season.
I think so too.
Because you not only look at the turnovers, you look at the impact. Swipe away the stat sheet. That's what Mike Boyan will do, and you'll understand that. Obviously, again, no fault of his own. I mean, you can pick your side on this, but to me, I understand why he had to go that way, and I don't put it on him to take over the game like we were talking about before. But at the same time, it was on him, right? I mean, when he decides to do that, it is on him. So that's why I say it's one of his worst games. Yeah, he scored in the high 20s, but at the same time, the impact does not always match the stat sheet.
Yeah, that's so true, right? And it's the reason that some of these games, you can look at it and you can also look at the turnovers, right? You see the high turnover numbers and you're like, oh man, that's a little bit alarming. But even to that point, I mean, some of these they're calculated risks, right? They're decisions he has to make, right? Because somebody's got to step up, especially against Kansas. And I know it's an unranked Kansas team, but man, this Kansas team, they were the better basketball team, clearly, by far last night, obviously. And I still think that they're going to make a deep run. They still obviously are going to make the tournament, going to have deep run potential as they will every year. And they'll climb up in the rankings too. I mean, they'll be ranked probably again, right? Maybe in the next AP poll. But yeah, this is no I guess if you want to talk about history, they haven't been unranked in all these years, whatever. Who cares? This is Kansas we're talking about, and this is Bill Self we're talking about, and this is still a very, very good team, especially during this game, especially on defense. And then the issue lies in with OSU going up against a team that has very good big men, right? Because this is a short team. We knew that coming in this year. How are they going to do this the rest of the year? Because this last night showed it again, right? TCU showed it for sure. Both TCU games, I think. And this was another glaring example of it.
I don't think OSU will ever be a perfect defensive team in the way they play. Not because of the way they play, but just the personnel they have and everything, right? You early on, what was the complaint? The 3-point shooting, right?
Yeah.
Because their 3-point defense looked porous, right? But when you really broke it down, I didn't think their 3-point defense was necessarily bad. I just think the way they're playing, there's so much ball denial. There's so much aggressive defense. They'll bite. I mean, not bite per se. I mean, they'll be aggressive. They'll blitz, pick and rolls. They'll bring a lot of help. They'll play ball denial, and they'll give up a backdoor cut here or there, right? That's gonna happen, and you're gonna do more good than bad. But at the same time, when you want to bring so much help, and you want to play that sort of style, especially in 2-3 zone, because first of all, zones are prevalent to outside shooting, right? That's obviously the biggest weak point. But you bring all this help and everything, even in man-to-man, you're going to give up some threes. And then the way you're going to defend a team like Kansas, I mean, Mike Boynton or no team in college basketball period, is going to complain and say, hey, we don't have size. They're going to do whatever they need to, right? So you're going up against a guy like David McCormick, like a tall guy like this, who's one of the true low-post presences in the Big 12. You're going to bring help, and they did a really good job of that in the first half, where whenever David McCormick, I thought they might front the post and have someone behind, but the way they did it was whenever David McCormick would catch the ball, they would let him, but they'd make sure they catch it a little bit outside, and then before David McCormick puts the ball on the floor, takes one dribble, they would bring help to the baseline. So Caleb Boone would be forcing David McCormick to that baseline, which was very good, and it worked, and limited to 2 points in the first half.
Yeah.
But after that, as Kansas really started to hit a couple shots from outside, as guys started to, score some baskets, you couldn't lay off so much and do that. And that's one of the tough things. Again, you decide. Where you watch that first Kansas game, they dominated most of that game, right? They won, but you're going to give up some baskets to David McCormick. You have to be okay with that, right? That's one of those weak points for sure, but you just got to bring help all you can, and you're going to have some baskets. But I think the main thing was the rebounding, right? Yeah. I mean, you saw how many points they were giving up just on those rebounds in the first half especially. It's going to be 20-4 to begin the game. But instead, whenever Kansas would miss baskets, you had guys coming in. So it became that second point where those guards probably didn't want to watch and, ball watch those guards, so they didn't want to come bring help. It's a whole mess. It's like pick your poison left and right, and that's really the real issue.
Yeah, and here's the thing too is that in the second half there, I just want to know your thoughts straight up. What is your thoughts on Caleb Boone not playing? Because Mike Boynton said that this wasn't any sort of injury type of deal. This was just an effort type of deal, right?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, if Mike Boynton believes, if your culture is defense and this and that, you got to put your money where your mouth is, right? And Mike Boynton constantly does that with everything, off the court, on the court, everything. And he wants to have that defensive mantra. This is going to teach a guy like Caleb Boone, hey, no matter what you do on offense, you come here, you play defense first. That's how you create a real culture, right? You don't just give a slack. You don't slack off for a guy and say, hey, you're not really playing defense. You show them. You don't just go to the media and say, hey, blah, blah, this happened. He needs to play better defense. You show a guy, hey, you don't play defense, you're not going to do it. And I think that's okay. I didn't know if he did the worst job. I guess I wasn't paying enough attention to Caleb Boone. But I mean, I guess if that defensive intensity is not there, then you bench a guy, and that's hopefully going to teach him, hey, you need to be a better defender.
Yeah, and Mike Boynton is obviously the guy that he's got a history of taking no nonsense, right? Kicking people off the team, and I'm not saying he's kicking Caleb Boone off the team by any means, by any stretch of the imagination, but a benching is certainly a thing that can light a fire under a guy, right? And that's something that you might want to see from a guy like Caleb Boone, who has so much potential, right? And someone that can get it done and can be your guy, especially with just the lack of freaking big men on this team. Right. I mean, I don't want to say bench Bernard Kuma to try to get the same result, but oh man, like there's going to be such a mishap for this team going forward, because when you think about it, it's just such a glaring thing, especially in the rebounding category too. I think that is a great point that you brought up, is that, I mean, the rebounding is going to be such a lopsided affair, I think, from here on out. Who can be that guy? Is it got to be Ice? Does it have to be Cade? Who's going to be the guy that steps up and becomes the marquee rebounder in this team?
When you watch this team and how they gave up rebounds, it wasn't down to, hey, Dave McCormick, the big man, whoever the big man was. Mitch Lightfoot wasn't grabbing rebounds. That's not what happened here, right? It was guards just sneaking in behind, and it's a lack of effort. What Mike Boynton said in the beginning of the season was he was scared of this team not grabbing defensive rebounds. and it wasn't because this team didn't have the personnel. Mm-hmm. They have the personnel. Isaac Likely, Cade Cunningham, they're 2 leading rebounders, right? Sure. They're 2 point guards. Imagine that, right? Right, yeah. Bryce Williams, Keelan Boone's, I think, one of the best rebounders who really hasn't played much. Maybe he's third. We don't know, right? But the whole point is, it's an effort thing from everyone. That's really how it's going to go. It's going to locate your man. Anyone can grab a rebound. Isaac Likely has shown that on offense and defense. Matthew Alexander Moncrief has showed that. His high motor, right, from being in Canada. Like, everyone should and can grab rebounds. This is a top 20, believe it or not, top 25, if I got my numbers right, top 25 rebounding team in the country. Yep. I mean, that's impressive, right? I mean, right off the mark. And that just shows you it's effort from this team showing off that, hey, we can rebound as a team, and it's gonna be everyone. It's not right. It's not just gonna be one guy. You can't just expect one guy. It's because you watch all those rebounds. It was just Kansas guards just who were from the 3-point line, walking in, slipping by, and just grabbing a rebound, and that's just a lack of effort. Not finding your man and boxing him out. Again, you're playing a zone, understandable, but when you're in that zone, you gotta understand. Hey, I'm not only playing defense, I'm also grabbing a rebound. Mm-hmm. And it's the old saying. I mean, you don't play defense if you don't grab a rebound. I don't care how good you play, right? You need to grab a rebound. And that's the main thing. When you don't, you're just giving away free possessions, because not only are they free possessions clear, they're also better possessions because your defense isn't set, so you don't know who you're covering. Guys could just be wide open on 3-point line, because it just changes the whole complexion of how you're doing it. And it's going to be a team effort, and it needs to be, because that's what's been all season long, where anyone can really go off for 10 rebounds, right? Mm-hmm. We've seen Kane do it. We've seen Cade would do it. We've seen Ice do it. We've seen different guys grab rebounds. We just need everyone to do that, and that's when you're going to see OSU flourish.
Athleticism, high motor, and tenacity are some of the key qualities to have when you're rebounding the basketball, especially in a small team like this. And are you going to sit here and tell me that there's that every single one of these players, I think there's just a few exceptions here and there, that doesn't have all those qualities, right? I think that's just the culture Mike Boynton's built, and I think that's just the athletes he's recruited here, right?
Yeah.
You look at, I mean, just freaking Isaac Likely as a whole, right? He was the man with rebounding at the beginning of the season. I mean, Keelan Boone, too, like you said, hurt a little bit, potentially. Yeah. But, I mean, these are the kinds of guys that can get those rebounds, and those are the qualities you need, right? Yeah. So every single player, I feel like, has the potential to do it, and it's just not happening.
You saw how they were grabbing rebounds, and a lot of offensive rebounds too. Mm-hmm. You look at this team, you think, oh man, they don't really have big men. Even the one big man is not that big, and they really struggle with that. But it was just tenacity. You saw Keelan Boone, the reason he was grabbing rebounds, he was just running in and using his size, and it was just anticipation, tenacity. Isaac Likely, he would just position himself down on the board and grab it. And our defense are doing the same thing. But in the past 2 games, against Texas, against Kansas, it really hasn't been there in the same rate, and it needs to be.
It definitely needs to be. Mr. Tumma, next week, Kansas State, Iowa State, 2 of the teams that are at the bottom of the Big 12 standings. Is this a perfect palate cleanser for them after a game like this? Going into a game against Baylor on the 20th, just as sort of a leeway back into, I guess, more competitive play. Is that good practice before Baylor? And how do you think they're going to fare in these next 2 games?
Yeah, I mean, I think the win, Kansas State's obviously been better than they were in the beginning of the season. Iowa State hasn't. Mm-hmm. And it definitely helps. But as Mike Boynton, I'm sure will emphasize, any coach will emphasize, you got to take everyone seriously in the Big 12, right? If you don't, you see what happens, right? Upsets happen left and right. But it definitely does help, because no matter what, there's really no nights off in the Big 12. And there's really no nights off in basketball, right? All these guys are professional athletes. You just got to keep playing hard and get yourself to a position. But I think it should definitely help, especially playing, I mean, the teams they've played in a row. Yeah. Right? It should help, I think. But that's just setting up for a tough stretch.
Yeah. Hopefully, for OSU's sake, there's no trap games here and there with these next 2 opponents. And then, obviously, as the Ocali's very own Chris Becker reminded us, mark your calendars. February 20th is going to be potentially another competitive game against Baylor. We will see if OSU is at full strength during that matchup. But that's all we have for you today on Deep in the Novo. I'm Ryan Novozinsky. We are back with Sudeep Tumma. Have a great day. Continue to listen to and read all of our Ocali coverage on Ocali.com, at Ocali on Twitter, and at Ocali Sports on Twitter, and all your other favorite social medias. Once again, for Ryan Novozinsky and Sudeep Tumma, have a great day.